I know I am a little late. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late, guys. I was wrapping up my office hours over on Discord for Warzone Eternal. Welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd Live, where we discuss all things nerdy and all things Bryan at this point. I just got back, like a week ago, but earlier this week, I got back from the Gamehole 2025, and it was amazing. I mean, it always is, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. But we are going to go ahead and do the week in Bryan, or 2 weeks in Bryan, I guess, as the case may be. But a lot of it is going to be kind of covered when we talk about Gamehole, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. Let me take a quick drink. Yay. All right. So, personally wise, in kind of a weird spot. I am going to amp up my trips to the gym. I'm going to do 4 times a week instead of 3. Although this week I only managed to get there once, but that is because of the second part of the personal situation. I deal, obviously, a bigger gentleman. I deal with my weight, and I deal with some not congenital, inherited arthritis situations. Now that I'm closing in on 50, but one of the things that that I do deal with is sciatica. My sciatic nerves in my right hip get pinched quite often, and there are times where I wake up in the morning and I can barely walk. It takes a little while, takes a few minutes to kind of work itself out. I got to make sure I take things really, really slow. Well, it's been treating me just fine. As basically as long as I stay limber and keep going to the gym and stuff. That tends to be it. Well, I did something at Gamehole or maybe immediately thereafter. I don't know exactly what happened. But specifically 2 days ago, I woke up and my left sciatic nerve was just on fire. And it was bad. It was rough. It took me almost a full hour to get up and about and moving. And so I do plan on seeing my doctor about it to see what's up, see if there's anything that can be done. If I have to go back to the chiropractor, which I hate go to the chiropractor. But all that being said, I'm dealing with it. I'm working on it. It is what it is. Hobby wise, I don't have anything right now, but I do. I finished all my stuff that I needed for Gamehole, except for the charity piece, which is now going to get moved up to Gamehole Con. But I have a new project, apart from painting some cool Warzone stuff. I have my niece's D&D group. She sent me all of their player character models and what they are supposed to look like. And I've done this for her once before for previous campaigns. I enjoy it. It's fun. I like to be involved in that sort of thing. And it's fun when family, when I've got family that are nerding and have nothing to do. It has nothing to do with me. I think that's cool. Game wise, playing a lot of Helldivers, and then I played a bunch of games at Gamehole, which again we'll talk about in a little bit, barring any questions that pop up in the chat. But I was supposed to have there was supposed to be an Intergalactic Heroes game, although it got postponed until tonight. So later tonight, I'm gonna get a chance to play. We had a D&D game that the date got juggled 3, 4, 5 times. Basically, there's just a lot of juggling going on with the schedule right now. This is a bad time between holidays and conventions and tragedies in people's families, and it's a rough time to try and get a bunch of adults together to game, which is what it is. These are the calendar is always the big bad evil guy. And then work-wise, I mean, obviously, we'll answer any questions and stuff. But I think the big thing, Thundercats is going well. I actually just wrapped up on the how to design your own Thundercats vehicle section, and now I'm statting out a bunch of the existing Thundercats vehicles, which it's cool. It's fun to quantify the things that we see on screen, but it also highlights things about old cartoons and comics that they do a lot of one-off stuff. They do a lot of this vehicle does this thing and it never does it again. So I mean, there's obviously ways to game around it to figure out how that goes. But we're having a ton of fun with just the project. I think it's going to really turn out to be a really cool game, and if all goes well, I'm hoping to be able to maybe submit a Thundercats session for GaryCon, because they're going to have me out as a special guest again this year, or this upcoming year, and I'm hoping that maybe one of my special events can be a Thundercats event. Thundercats, ho! I think it'd be great. What else? I mean, I feel like I'm constantly working on a bunch of stuff, a bunch of lore stuff for Warzone. I was hoping to be able to discuss something that was going to happen this week, but there's been some complications with Spiel and all the stuff that's going on what I thought was going to happen didn't happen, so I can't discuss it now. We'll talk about it next week, I think. But I've been working on writing a bunch of lore documents for Warzone stuff, juggling the playtesters, working on planets for intergalactic heroes. I know there's more. I feel like I'm constantly working on a Shadowrun novel still. I'm always in motion, always putting stuff together. And in fact, I had a really, really good meeting at Gamehole. It was a follow-up meeting at Gamehole, but then I had an actual meeting with a company. Until we can say more, I can't really even infer. But it was a really good meeting. It's going to be a fun project that is going to have very high visibility project. So there will be a lot of people that will have comments on either side of the board. I'm sure, people that are going to love it, and people are going to be like, it's the internet, so that's what happens. And it's the gaming industry, so that's definitely what happens. But I can't wait to tell you more about that. I'm honored that I was headhunted for it, and I am humbled that I think it's going to be a really, really cool product if people give it a chance. So I'll tell you more about that when I can. But I think one of the big things that has changed for me work-wise this week is I officially started my office hours over on Discord, on the Warzone Eternal Discord server. Basically every weekday from noon to 1 Eastern Standard, I have my own little thread section, my little channel over there. I hop in there and I answer questions and just kind of entertain conversation. And for the most part, people ask stuff. We get into topics of, what would I do? What do you think is coming down the road? If you were to do this set of models, what do you think you would do? Now, obviously, because you all know, if you are a Warzone fan and you've paid attention to anything that I've already said, that I've got years worth of stuff already kind of pre-designed that just needs to find its spot on the roadmap and in the schedule, and so got to kind of find its way into the play test part of things. But there are also there's elements to getting that game off the ground that it's kind of hard sometimes to deliver that information. Oh, we are never fails. So just off camera is my cat Larfleeze. Because when I left for, I'm totally on a tangent. It's the best part about being live. I can do a tangent. When I left for Gamehole, hi baby. When I left for Gamehole, Natalie normally stays home. This particular year, she had a vacation plan to go visit her sister, which was awesome. She got to go have a little vacation, and it meant that we boarded the dogs and that our lovely cats kind of had the run of the house. Well, ever since I've gotten back, this little monster, who is my squishy, she watches TV with me. She often comes in here to hang out. She's my printer cat. Larfleeze it's been up my butt. I can't go anywhere. If I leave this door open for longer than 10 minutes, she's right here. And she's been here sleeping on my printer for the last 2 hours. And now she is waking up, which means she is probably going to try and crawl on me or get in the way. But maybe I can keep her pacified. Just stay there and keep cleaning yourself. Maybe if you guys are nice, I'll give you I'll let you see her. Yeah, here we go. Actually, give me a sec. Yeah. Cat. Look at the camera. Look at the camera. Larfleeze has now officially been on Tales from a Professional Nerd. All right. But yeah, so let's, unless questions and stuff come into the chat, let's talk about why this episode exists. Brian Solomon says, cat. Yep, that's Larfleeze. She's my wonderful. She's my little fluff, even though she's been totally up my butt. So yeah, Gamehole. It is of my role-playing game shows that I do every year. It is probably, I don't even say probably, it's my favorite. I love Gary Con. I love Origins. Origins tends to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I often go specifically for Warzone. But Gen Con is Gen Con. Gen Con is a commercial show. It's a business show. I don't go to Gen Con for a specific reason. I go to Gen Con because it is where so much of my following year's business and plans and meetings and panels and burf. When it comes to specifically role-playing game shows, things like Winter Fantasy, Gary Con, Gamehole Con, they're all fantastic. But I think Gamehole Con's probably my favorite. I love Gary Con to death, but Gary Con does tend to be a little more chaotic because of how spread out everything is. And there have been several times where I'll have an event, and I've got an event, and I've got an event that it's kind of a maze to get to where you're going. Whereas Gamehole is very condensed. There is another hotel that some events happen at, but Alex does a really, really good job of making sure that, at least for me, I've never run into something where I've got an event all the way in the other hotel that butted up against one that's over here. Like like I said, it's amazing. It's a great show. This year was interesting. Not only because I got to, do some new playtest special events for Intergalactic Heroes, which went swimmingly, and I loved everything that we put together for that. But I ran a D&D adventure that I just completely just decided out of the blue. I was like, you know what? I don't run enough just regular D&D. So I ran a regular D&D game, but of course, because it was a special event, and the chairs cost a little extra to get at the table, I wanted to make it special and make it more than just go slay the monster. So I ran an event that I wrote called Fungus Among Us, where all of the heroes, that there's a small village, a small kobold village on the edge of the Underdark that is being preyed upon by illithids. And so the kobolds reach out to the world's most famous illithid hunters, the characters. And the characters, who do you hire to hunt brain-eating monsters, but monsters with no brains? So it was a group of 5 myconids that I gave player character stats to. and painted individual models specifically for each one of them. And they went on an illithid hunt, basically down into the tunnels, and they learned more about the situation, and they find a bunch of kobold thralls. And it was really interesting to see the players make those decisions of, no, is there any way for us to save them? Yeah, I gave personalities to all the characters, and one of them was like the big scary bruiser guy is actually kind of a pacifist. You know, he only rages when he has to, and he never swings first, you know, that kind of stuff. And we had a blast. It was a great time. And in fact, one of the players said multiple times, this was his first Gamehole Con, and he said multiple times that he he was having this is so cool, this is so amazing, I love I love what you're doing, you're a great DM, which of course, pat me on the back, flattery will get you everywhere. But one of the things that he mentioned is that back home with his group, he was hoping to be able to get this kind of theatrics and this kind and the maps and the minis, and he was hoping to be able to take his DMing to the next level. And so while I was packing up my stuff after the game, I kind of had that moment of realization that I'm only going to run Fungus Among Us once. So I always give away the player characters models to the players as a souvenir, but when everybody else kind of fanned out and gone their separate ways, after I cleaned everything up, I went ahead and gave all of the minis. So all of the bad guys, all the intellect devourers, all the illithids, everything that I had painted for that particular adventure, I gave them all to that player so he could take them back to his house. And whether he runs that game or another game or just, I really, it was his first Gamehole Con. It was one of his first conventions he's ever been to. And I was like, you know what? I want to make this, this was a fun moment. It was a good moment, but I kind of want to make his first Gamehole special. So I went ahead and gave him all of the models that we had used, all the bad guy models and everything, and the carrying case that goes with it. And just like, have at. And he seemed unbelievably happy. And that's really, I've said this before, that's the reason I do this. It's the reason I do the what we do here is to try and make people happy. And it seemed to have worked. It also probably didn't hurt that session came a scant 12 hours away, or 12 hours before the memorial event that we had for my friend Rob. Rob Wieland, a writer for Forbes magazine, and he's written for Total Recall for me, and he was going to write some adventures for Intergalactic Heroes, and just an amazing guy. He really was a hub of all things cool in the gaming universe. And he passed away very suddenly a few weeks ago, immediately, literally right before Gamehole Con. And it shook a lot of us pretty hard. He was supposed to run a charity event Friday night at Gamehole. So instead of that charity event, we all got together and did a kind of a storytelling, memorial. And there's a lot of tears and a lot of why did this happen, and but also a lot of laughter and a lot of dark humor jokes, things that Rob would have loved. It was a beautiful time, and it really did kind of help a lot of us get through what had kind of turned into sort of a weird Gamehole, not seeing Rob right on every corner. And, it was weird. It was weird, but it was definitely a good way to say goodbye to someone who told so many great stories with and to us over the last several years. So all that aside, I don't want to get myself all sad or anything, but that did kind of create a little bit of a not a hole in the game hole, the hole in the game hole. But there was a weird vibe. There was definitely some of the people who we normally see there every year weren't there. In the case of Rob and Cosmo Joe, they they're no longer with us at all. But in the case of like Cassidy, she had something came up, and just friends of ours that we look forward to seeing at. My buddy Tommy said that Gamehole is less of a convention for the industry folk, but it's almost like a family reunion. And I completely agree. And this year it felt a little not strange. It just felt there was just a little bit of a weird vibe to it because there were people missing. And some of the things that we do every Gamehole, I normally get to break out my bear ears and play Nuggle Honey's Bane at Gamehole, but I didn't get to do that this year because Tommy didn't run any role-playing game events, any stream events. I did get to do something very cool. I got to do other Catacombs and Creators. So if you take a look, so the poster here, there were actually 5 of us. Sarah Babe jumped on there as well and played a goblin. But these were the 4 characters played by myself, Matt Forbeck, John Kovalik, and Stan, the artist who did this. So on this poster, if you see the guy who looks like a football player, that was me. That is the character I was playing at that event. The biggest damn high elf you ever didn't see. A transplant from another universe where they play a game called Blood Bowl. And I created a Blood Bowl fighter, high elf, a linebacker that was named after one of my a friend that I miss terribly. He was my best friend for many years, and we have since kind of pulled apart just because of space and time. But one of his high elf Blood Bowl players was El Rayo Lananan Lananalerninus, and so that was my Blood Bowl character, and we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. It was madness. The Catacombs and comedians, or Catacombs and Creators, when we play, they're always just nutty. But we had a good time, and the audience seemed to have a good time. One of the audience members actually, they a bunch of them stuck around for us to sign the posters and things. But the next day, I actually had somebody from the audience see me in the hall and was like, "You were hilarious last night. It was so good to see you and meet you." And so that was fun. It was an interesting event, but it was the only streaming event that I did. I did a bunch of panels, which were awesome, but it's different than actually getting on stage and playing characters, and especially playing characters that I'm used to playing, that I've got costume pieces for, like Nuggle or Hollywood, or even Captain Berwick in my Legacy of Worlds character. So it was weird not to have those events, and I actually mentioned it to Devin. So over at Six Sides of Gaming, Tommy Gofton is kind of the head owner person, but the kind of DM in charge of most of the streams is Devin. And so I mentioned it to Devin later that I think that really did change my Gamehole. That those events weren't available, and I understand why Tommy did not want to run the streams from a factual standpoint, but it doesn't change the fact that there are a lot of fans that really like them and really enjoy them. And I really wish that he, even if he himself doesn't run them or doesn't have the time or the bandwidth or whatever to be part of it, that he still sets those time slots up for Devin, or if Ryan comes down and is a part of it, to do those things, because they become kind of a fixture at the convention. And I will say that is one of the things that I think that felt weird, is not getting to play with my Six Sides friends at Gamehole, and weird and kind of a bummer. If there was a negative to the convention, is that I didn't get to play with my Six Sides friends. with the exception of an amazing game of Blood on the Clock Tower that we played really, really, really late at night on Friday night. How does a chronomancer not have enough time? Craig, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I really wish Tommy would have kept those slots, and we would have been able to play some games, because I always love them, and I feel like the audience loves them. Maybe, I don't know. But we played an amazing game of Blood on the Clock Tower, where I was the demon, and I sacrificed myself midway through when I thought they were on to me, and it led to an evil win. It's actually the only time I've ever won Clock Tower before. It doesn't matter. Whichever side that I'm on, we always end up losing. So that's a plus, we'll say. But overall, Gamehole is always great. Oh, so Craig, you hopping on. So one of the things that happened at Gamehole was one of the first, the first time that the folks that run the Gamehole Productions, Gamehole Publishing, ran the Wardens of the Eastern Marches Season 1, which yours truly wrote one of the adventures for, and have already talked to Alex about writing an adventure for the next season. So it was really cool to see all the tables just busy and moving, and people being a part of that story. And organized play always puts my head in a weird spot, because it's not like a regular campaign, but it is. And it's not like so it's not like it's not like regular play, but it's a regular game. It's not like regular characters, but they kind of are. There's these extra things that don't you dare. This is Larfleeze. Hello. All right. Get down, baby. Okay. Sorry. She was about ready to walk directly in front of everybody. There's different aspects of it, and one of the things that I thought was awesome is going to see where they were running the thing. And Craig, you were there. You were helping run that part. Was the magic item exchange desk, Bilbin's magnificent wares. It was so cool to see a little bit of theatrical, a little bit of, it's more than just running a one-off. And I'm really hoping that, as we move into the second season and whatnot, that kind of that sort of spirit and stuff can continue. Because it was cool to see it and see all these players all pushing forward. It was awesome. So a player, God, I think his name is Ted. I've played with him before at Winter Fantasy, for Adventure League stuff, and it was super cool to see him playing in the Warden's organized play at Gamehole. I ran into him and I was like, "Oh my god, what are you doing?" He's like, and he's wearing a T-shirt from his faction. It's the wrong faction. Everybody knows Golden Conservancy is the way to go. But it was cool because this is someone who I met playing an organized play game a couple of years ago for arguably the largest organized play system, the Adventure League. And there was Adventure League stuff running at Gamehole, but he was choosing to do the Wardens of the East Marches. And for that little 80-bit that like bit of me that I had anything to do with this, there was like kind of a tick in my pride box of that dude could have been running Pathfinder Society. He could have been playing Pathfinder Society. He could have been playing Adventure League, arguably two monsters in the room, but him and the other just pile of tables. They were choosing to play the Wardens because I'm assuming it's because this is the hometown. This was this is the Gamehole Publishing. It's the Gamehole Con. This is their big deal. But that was a choice that he made, and it was a choice that he was enjoying. Because when I talked to him, he was having a blast, and that's again goes back to the whole if everyone's having fun. seeing someone who I have been at the table and enjoyed with, seeing that genuinely happy face of him being a part of this. And of course, some of the weird looks from his table when I came over and gave this dude a hug from out of nowhere. But the just seeing that they're having a good time playing through this story and playing through what was being created, or what had been created, it's awesome. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I still get that same kind of that same kind of belly tickle when I see someone enjoying something that I had even a little bit to do with. Obviously, Ted wasn't playing my scenario, and maybe he never did. I have no idea, but it was cool to know that he got a chance to be part of that universe, and eventually he'll get around to getting to my adventure. Mine's later in the season. Yeah, it was a ton of fun. The after hours stuff, the stuff that whenever I talk about Gamehole, a lot of times I bring up the fact that Gamehole is about the industry people getting together, just enjoying themselves and kind of uncorking a little bit, taking the starch out of their shirts, and not doing it behind closed doors, not having like celebrity parties and things. This one, we still had a lot of that. We really did. But I will say that the renovation, so I'm getting ahead of myself. The main hotel at Gamehole used to be the Clarion. And I say used to be because it's still there. It's still the same hotel, but it was bought by someone else and renovated into the Spark. And the Spark renovated their lounge area, and it's much brighter. There's dividers in the middle. There's fewer tables. It's a different vibe there now. The big dividing thing in the middle kind of turned that, instead of it being one big party, it almost felt like kind of four separate parties down there. And I think that some of that had to do with just the way that the social structures of things come together and fall apart, and is very malleable. But all that being said, we had a great time, and it was still an awesome event altogether, a social event, a wonderful time. On a business level, it was good for me because it set up a few great meetings that happened this week. Got to add a few new names to the playtester roster of Intergalactic Heroes. It's again, I love this show. I still have one more show this year here in a few weeks called PAX Unplugged. But I'm going to PAX Unplugged for Warzone. So this was my last sort of role-playing based show. And I don't know if I'm doing any panels or any events or anything at PAX. I have no idea. That has yet to be determined. What I do know is I want to be telling people about a whole lot of Warzone stuff, and hopefully spreading the love of the miniature game that is taking over my brain for the last few years. All right. I mean, I hate to be like, and that's my Gamehole. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing stuff. I'm sure there's parts that I'll be like, oh yeah, there was this thing that popped up, and but collectively, I mean, my events went well, my panels went well. I will, you know what? I am going to go out on a slight limb. One of my panels that I was on, so last year, panels collectively. Last year, I believe Mike Merles was the one that operated and like kind of orchestrated all the panels, made sure that all the panels had moderators and and whatnot, and it felt very well-oiled machine, well orchestrated. A couple of the panels I was on this year felt a little more I don't want to be like haphazard. That's not the right word. That's far too negative. It felt a little bit more go with the flow, go with what the audience wants to tell you, or wants to ask, or what the panel decides to come up with. And I'm not sure if I dig that. I think panels should always have a moderator. Meandering, Craig, great word. They did feel a little meandering. They felt like you were kind of all over the place when the topic. People go to these panels for a specific topic, and sometimes they feel like you're just kind of whatever. We're going to talk about whatever we want to talk about, and that's you're taking up time out of these people's schedule, whether the people on the panel or the people attending them. They may have missed a game event because they wanted to be at this panel for a particular reason. And if we don't do that, if we don't stick to the script, so to speak, we risk, wasting their time, making them not want to do more panels in the future because, they may look at the schedule next year and go, well, I'm not going to go to that guy's panel again. He couldn't stay on topic. And part of that is because maybe there wasn't a moderator there to keep that on topic. So one panel in particular, we were supposed to be there to discuss monster design in role-playing games. And that's what I thought we were there for. And it turned into, for the vast majority of the panel, it turned into a very high level academic look at what a monster is on a deeper path. And, monsters, must they be unnatural? It was very academic, very scholarly. And for those of us who went there thinking we were going to talk about how we design monsters for games, I was looking at a lot of blank faces in the crowd. A lot of people going, this is not what I came for. And while it was still good information, and the people who were talking about stuff definitely they knew what they were talking about, they were knowledgeable on the subject, and delivered that information to the audience in a really good way, I don't think it was what the panel was supposed to be about. And part of that is the moderator chose to make it about this academic higher thought. He tried to make it more about almost like a university speech instead of talking to a bunch of gamers about how we make monsters. And we got into it a little bit toward the end, but I hope the moderator did a good job moderating the panel that he wanted to be doing, but I don't think that was what was sold. It definitely wasn't what was sold to us as panelists, and I don't think it was what was sold to the audience either, because there were a lot of people. We got to a certain point where, it's like 15, 20 minutes left of an hour-long panel, and asked if there were any questions, and the whole crowd went silent. And that means that we didn't do our job. We didn't get people thinking. We didn't get people wondering about the process, or it meant that we set the stage of, you guys might be in the wrong room. And so I tried to change gears and said, hey, okay, does anybody have any questions about how we actually, the actual gamification of the monsters? And we got a bunch of hands. We got some conversation going there for the last part of the panel. And I feel like the advertisement for the panel sold something that we were not. It was selling something that we didn't deliver until the very last part of the panel, when we actively changed to do so. And I think that that's got to be something that when next year happens and we start talking about panels and stuff, I do think that I'm going to bring that up to the collective about I'm not going to be fussy, but I am going to point out that these are only hour-long panels, and especially the ones that have 5 or 6 people talking, you've got to stick to the point. You've got to stay on target, because that's what the audience is there for. if they want to know more, about this long story that you've got to tell, or something along those lines, this side tangent that you've come up with, this alternate thing, if they want to know more about it, they will come find you afterwards. That's why we deliver our socials. That's why we tell people this is where you can find me, so you can continue that conversation later. The panel itself should be about the panel, if that makes any sense. Oh, Craig said stuff. Maybe the moderators are hesitant to seem critical of industry leaders. That seemed the case in the How to Be a Pro Nerd panel, in your opinion. Yeah, maybe that's the case. That it is the moderator doesn't, doesn't want to step on toes or something like that. I also know that, especially in today's kind of theater of the industry, everybody is very hesitant to tread on someone else's train of thought. It is very hard to look at somebody and go, all right, come on. Even if they're not an industry leader, you want to let them kind of find that place, find your nice stopping point, and then we'll move on to another topic. But I do think that if you are a moderator, you do need to moderate and ask questions rather than moderate in order to be an extra panelist. If that makes any sense, maybe, I don't know. All right, so we have about 15 minutes left of my live. Do we have any questions or anything? I mean, I just want to lay out the, speaking of panels, to the audience, see if there's anything that anybody wants to chat about. If not, I'm gonna just talk about how amazing Warzone is. No, I'll probably talk about Gamehole stuff. Had my Intergalactic Heroes playtest session. I've run that event before. That was not the first time that event had been run, but it was the first time that the players chose specifically to kind of buck against their contractor, their fixer, the person who got them the mission that they were going on, like almost immediately. I don't know if maybe I played the NPC too smarmy, or perhaps the breadcrumbs that I left that were something could be different than what it seems. I don't know if they grabbed onto those and just ran with it, but it was absolutely, as soon as they had the opportunity to go against to not trust their contractor, they totally did. We're like, yep, nope, let's not do that. We're going to do the other thing. We're going to do what's for the greater good. And I was like, well, that does mean that you guys won't get paid and you could have some notoriety involved. And one of the people, no joke, looked at me and was like, it's a one shot. I don't care. And while I admire the gumption, while I admire someone to go, it's a one shot, whatever, the reality of the fact is that it does kind of break that fourth wall, and it does sort of break the suspension of disbelief, where people make choices based off of, well, we only got about 20 minutes left, so I'm gonna shoot the guy. I understand it, especially at a convention where these are one-off games, and unless it is part of a greater storyline or something, you do have to kind of contend with the fact that it could just be we're gonna wrap this up, bum, 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 that kind of thing. It was a definite meta moment where the guy was like, yeah, I don't really care about my character's reputation because I'm never going to see this character again. And I didn't want to punish the rest of the table, just because there's one guy who's like, whatever, let's just do this. And everybody else was kind of getting into character. I didn't want to punish them by focusing on him being as meta as he was. But it ended up being a fun event, and they had a good time. And when we were packing up and everything, they actually did. A couple of them stayed around, asked, where can we find, I know this book's going to go to Kickstarter next year. How do we follow it? I definitely want to get involved. Great world building. You did an awesome job, fleshing out all this stuff. And they were very interested in more about, the tide, which is our kind of the energy that flows through everything in Intergalactic Heroes. And again, I love what I do, and I love the fact that I get to create these universes and create the settings and the worlds and gamify things about them. But overall, I think the thing that is universal, whether it's a minis game or a live action game or a board game or role playing game or any kind of game, is I love it when the narrative that we've built starts getting players asking questions that maybe we've already answered, like in our heads. We know in the future a new product is going to have this, or in a miniatures game someone says, well, what if this unit does this thing, and I can look over at my side monitor at the pre-playtest rules for that unit and go, they do not know how close they are for exactly what we're going to do with that. I love that sort of interaction, because for me, my view is when I was growing up gaming, some of my favorite moments were like sitting around with some of my friends at the coffee shop late at night talking about Vampire, not talking about the rules. Man, Potence would be cooler if it did this, or Celerity should throw a fastball, or whatever. More about the unanswered questions, or I can't wait till next game because I want to be able to do this. Do you think we could use our influence to do this? Or the next book's coming out in 6 months. I've heard that the Ravnos Antediluvian is coming back, or what I'm saying. I'm just running through all the stuff here. And those moments, the late night discussions over coffee about the 40K universe, the unanswered, the what do you think is coming next? Or, that one passage in that one book that Easter egg talked about a thing that hasn't happened, but it could. Those conversations, those cemented so many of my friendships. It turned just a conversational exchange over a game table into like deep philosophical conversations and debates and wish listing and all this extra stuff that came with playing these games and reading about these games beyond these games. And yeah, maybe it made me obsessed and turned me into the person you see before you, the professional nerd. But what it did is it turned, we'll say, a $50 rule book or source book into hundreds upon hundreds of hours of not just gameplay, but like just enjoyment about the game, enjoyment about the world, discussing things. People have their book clubs. We had our book clubs too, because our book was a codex, or our book was this adventure, this new setting book. And that was that feeling, that interaction is what I hope in every single game that I create. It is the number one thing that I hope I can instill in people. I know we're running short on time to get into more conversation. Sullivan says, extremely yes, vampire, mage, roller darkness, mage, vampire, werewolf, changeling, everything but mage. World Darkness generally had such a big effect like that. You could get lost in it with people. Absolutely. There was something about you got into that. I mean, hell, in our Blood on the Clock Tower game at Gamehole, a bunch of game designers who have been making games for 20 plus years, 10 plus years on some folks. When we had our eyes closed and you kind of have to fill the room with noise when the clock tower master person is running around doing all the secret stuff, we were talking it came up. Well, what clan do you think I play? This is a game that we haven't. I haven't played Vampire in a decade or more. I started 30 years ago, if not longer. Like 35 years ago, and we were still having those conversations and those. Well, someone labeled me. They're like, "Oh, well, you've got to be a Toreador," and I'm like, "Are you crazy? The dilettantes, you're nuts. Bruja for life, baby. And that's that kind of conversation came out of a deep narrative and a love for that narrative. And that's what I want to create. It's the reason why I get so fussy when someone breaks down games to just math, where it doesn't, the faction doesn't matter, the model doesn't matter, you're just numbers on the page. I'm not a character. What build are you playing? That's because that's not where I see the enjoyment of games come from. For me, is the enjoyment for me is that narrative rise, that feel of I'm building to the story, I'm playing as part of the story. Hell, 15, 20 years ago, I went to an Adepticon as part of one of the team tournaments, and there was a team there that all 4 armies, beautifully painted, unbelievably good, well-created conversions of all 4 armies, were all using Tyranid models. But they were all playing non-Tyranid lists because they were mind controlled. Here are the Tau Tyranids, and here are the Orc Tyranids, and here's the Imperial Tyranids. I understand it was a gimmick and it was cutesy for their table team or whatever, but that kind of thing, for me, it always makes me wrinkle my nose. I would never say, ugh, don't do that, because that's where you get your enjoyment from. I'm not going to tell you to stop. But when it comes to, if I were like the judge of theme, I would score that really low, because although it's a cute thing, it's so flies in the face of what the story is actually being told, and you're just doing it because fun. It's not for me, and I get it. I totally understand that, and I understand that people might see that view and go, "Wow, way to be a dick about someone else's idea." I'm glad they're having fun, and I'm glad they're having a good time. I just don't dig it. But what I do dig is when people spend I got on my own tangent. One of my favorite moments in all of my gamerdom, all of my professional gamerdom, was I went into the Game Preserve in Bloomington. The Game Preserve is a chain of game stores that I used to work at one. But great chain of stores. I went down to Bloomington. I went to go pick up some paint or something, I don't even remember what I was doing there, but there were a couple of guys in the back of the store that had they either had just finished or had taken a pause in their War Machine game. This was about 6-8 months after War Machine released. We hadn't won the Origins Awards for it yet. Like I do know that it was still a new game, and I was kind of sitting there getting ready to make my purchase, and someone in the back was talking about, I believe the phrase was, "How much do you think Val hates Denegra?" And it paused. It made me freeze in my tracks, because that was a storyline that I had written. It was something that I had created for the War Machine universe, were the idea of the twins, and it was, it took my breath away, because immediately, that Ratatouille moment where he gets, brought back to when he was a kid eating his mother's Ratatouille. I was brought back to sitting around in my buddy Ian's garage after a 7-hour game of 40K, us exhausted, sitting there looking at a table full of dead minis, and going on a, what do you think the red thirst in the Blood Angels actually means? Is this, are they falling to chaos? This long, talking till the sun came up post game about this narrative concept that may or may not eventually been resolved and explained. I have no idea. But that moment, I had my Ratatouille moment. I was sucked back to that time and was like, oh my God, there are people doing that with my stories, with my creations. And it is what set the stage for me wanting to focus on narrative and community and the greater storylines of the stuff that I build. And I think that moment is a defining moment for me because I saw it firsthand that people felt the way about my creations the way I felt about other people's creations, and what put that love of gaming in me. So yeah, that's my story. And Gamehole Con, to bring us back full circle, Gamehole Con is a celebration of that feeling for me. I love that show because it allows me to really focus on all the narrative stuff in my creations, and I dug it. I dug it. Bryan says that's like a whole novel or 3 that I wish had happened. Yeah, War Machine and the Iron Kingdoms started my career, and I will forever be in Matt Wilson and Bryan Snowdy's debt because of it. But there are a lot of storylines and threads and things over there that I wish got continued. Reinhold. All right. Well, I am now out of time. So thanks for sticking around with me and listening to me jaw on. We didn't have a lot of questions, but sometimes that happens. Until next time, please be safe. Wash your hands, get your shots, wear a mask. If you have to, just try not to be a jerk and leave every room a little happier than when you got there. And I think everything will be all right. Until next week, where we have kind of a cool unboxing to show you some neat stuff that I picked up at Gamehole. Just be safe, have fun, and play some games, because I'm gonna. Bye, guys.